Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you with something I have struggled with in the past. One of our practitioners came to me just yesterday and said she was complaining with it, and I think it's really a good idea to do a live on it. So we're just going through and we're talking about plantar fasciitis. And basically the quickest way to get rid of it, or the quickest way to cure your plantar fasciitis. And so the funny thing with any plantar fascia pain is it can get resolved reasonably quickly when you're doing the right thing. If you're doing the wrong thing, it can go on for months and months and months. So that's why you want to make sure everything that you're doing is sort of like up to date and is best case or best model, evidence-based. So the first things you want to do is like a couple of things we want to talk about first is we want to go through and we want to talk about like, what is the plantar fascia? Why does it get so irritated? What's its role? And then obviously how to fix it. So the first thing is like plantar fasciitis is commonly referred to as pain down around here, sort of like first thing in the morning. And so it's the point where your plantar fascia, which is basically just a fancy name for a tendon, inserts into the bone. And so your plantar fascia is actually a continuation of your calf Achilles complex, and it wraps around down into your foot. And then it runs sort of from like the base of the heel, spreads out sort of into all the toes and stuff. And so if it's a tendon, then we treat it and we rehab it like a tendon. So typically what happens is the tendons get irritated because the muscles aren't strong enough and you end up hanging out on the tendons too much. And then they get angry because it takes them a really long time to recover from stress, whereas muscles repair and regenerate, within 48 to 72 hours. Whereas, like a tendon can take a couple of days to sort of recover just because it doesn't have that same amount of blood flow as a muscle. And so when we start to think of it more like a tendon, then what we want to do is obviously we want to release tension off it, or we want to release tension off the muscles on either end of it. And then we want to strengthen up those muscles so we're not hanging out on the tendon so much. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a ball in or a frozen fault bottle, either one. Then we're going to go just do some isometrics, so just getting some strength through that muscle without too much movement, so we're not irritating it any further. Then we'll go into some strengthening protocols, or strengthening exercises, and finally we start to do some integration on how plantar fascia is meant to work. So the plantar fascia and the Achilles are actually sort of like I mentioned before, they're sort of one continuation of the other. And so basically their role in the body is to act like springs. So when we run, we want them to be like nice and bouncy. We want them to be able to store energy and then redistribute that energy really quickly. So unless you're going through and you're doing obviously the strengthening, you've got to do some kind of plyometric stuff to get on top of your plantar fascia for good. So we'll take you through that whole spectrum today. But like I said, the first thing we want to do is we want to start by releasing off any tight structures above or below what's giving us pain. So it takes the pressure off. And then we want to do some very light stretching. So like I said, we're going to start off with the ball. Obviously, it's pretty hard to get in very close with the foot with the lives. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop the foot. We're going to start sort of down the middle of the foot. So I'd always advise staying away from like that side of pain. And we can work up to the big toe, up to the little toes, and then out to the pinky toe. And we roll forwards and back. And then we're just going to go underneath the knuckle of the foot, and we're going to roll that one side to side. So what it kind of looks like is, we might just roll back like we've got a nice coloured ball. So like we said, we're just going to pop the ball underneath the foot. We're rolling forwards and backwards for sort of like 30 seconds. We're just going to pop the ball underneath the foot. We're going to roll forwards and backwards for 30 seconds. A nice little nifty trick we sometimes give to clients, if it's really tender and painful, you can use like a frozen water bottle is really nice because it has some kind of cooling effect. And you'll also get obviously the relaxation or like the fluid flow of blood flow into plantar fascia, and then also a little bit of stretch and extensibility through there. So after we've done like 30 seconds forwards and back, we're going to go underneath the knuckle, and we're just going to roll through there. So again, like when I do foam rolling and like ball release and stuff, I don't necessarily think of it as we're breaking up adhesions or we're breaking up the tissue, or we're actually like increasing like the stretch ability directly. What we're actually doing is we're facilitating blood flow into that area. And so with tendons, typically, like we said before, they don't get a whole heap of blood flow, so they have a slower healing response. So doing something like some like foam rolling, ball rolling, or frozen bottle rolling, a really nice way is just getting more blood flow into that area, getting the fluid flow, and then that then helps the tendons to move a little bit more. So after we've done a minute on each side, then we're going to go into some strengthening exercises. And so isometrics are a really nice way of sort of starting to get some strength in through the muscle without changing, sort of like putting too much tensile or stretch load on the tendons. So what we're going to do is I've got a nice little fold up towel that I did earlier on. Here's one I prepared earlier on. And then from there, what we're going to do is we're just going to pop, the toes on the foam roller. And then we want like the knife edge of the towel just to go underneath the knuckle of sort of like the big toe and the other toes. And then from there, you can either start off with a double leg iso, or I'm just going to go straight into a single leg iso. So we go into a full-blown calf raise, and we're just going to hold this position for, ideally we're holding it for 3 1-minute holds. At the start, you might surprise yourself with how weak it is, and it might be, say, 4 15-second holds or 3 30 or 5 30-second holds in order just to get some strength in through there. And so the fact that we're lifting up the toes helps the biceps or put a little bit more tension through that plantar fascia, and then that's like we said, a nice way of strengthening it up without going through too much range of motion or irritating it too much. So with this, obviously, if you only want to do it on the affected side, you can do it on the affected side. If you want to go through and do it on both sides, you can do it on both sides. I figure like both sides are usually going to be a little bit weak, so you'll do one side, have a break, while we do the other side, and then you just switch. So that way you're getting good bang for your buck rather than wasting your time just on the one exercise. So we're going to go into some exercises. So I'll move it up just a little bit more so we get full range. That's a really nice way of sort of settling things down, and we want to be doing that every day. So every day or every time like you feel the pain through your Achilles, like so if you're getting up and you're moving around, you're like, oh crap, first couple of steps are a little bit sore or tender. You want to get up and you just want to do that calf raise as a first point of call. So we're getting blood flow into that plantar fascia, and it's able to stretch and relax a bit. And then once it's settled down and those 1-minute holds are becoming pretty easy, then we want to add some movement into them. So we're going to transition into a single leg calf raise. So I always like just to have a block or a towel or something between the calves, but we're going to do same technique where we're putting the knuckles of the foot on the towel. We're just going to squeeze, a block or a foam roller or a towel just between the calves. So we want to make sure it's between the calves, not necessarily the knees. And then with the towel underneath the knuckles, then we're just going to go through, we're going to do calf raises. And so from here, we want to be aiming, for 3 sets of 15. But if your plantar fascia is giving you grief, if you haven't done these for a while, a nice starting point might say be 3 sets of 8 instead. So start off 3 sets of 8. Over the course of a couple of weeks, you can build up to 3 sets of 15. And by the end of that, you should be starting to feel like you're getting a nice burn through the calves. And then when you finish that, the Achilles is feeling much better. So like I said, I always like to do both sides. So we'll go through. It's also nice to do both sides because again, like you can measure how much of an asymmetry there is. So if one side's really strong compared to the other, obviously the weak side we want to work on, but the side that's stronger, will often get overused. So you can spend a little bit more time doing some stretches and some relaxation type exercises without stretching, foam rolling, ball releases. So after we've gotten rid of, after we've gone through the calf raises, then we want to start getting the feet to work sort of in a more holistic manner with like the rest of the foot and the glutes. What we're going to do is we're going to go band, and then we're going to chuck it underneath the knuckle of the big toe. So it's just going to go underneath the knuckle of the big toe. And then we're going to pop the other end around the ankle. So from there, we then just drop in and we're just going to tap out to the side. And so this is a really nice variation on a banded like crab walk or banded toe taps, where normally people have the band around their knees, and if you're lucky, you get glutes. If you're unlucky, you get TFL tightness through the front of the hips. But with this one, we're obviously putting the band underneath the toe. So we're biasing a little bit more of those like small intrinsic muscles in the feet. And then we're also training the brain that when our feet fire, our glute fires as well. And it's much harder to cheat the movement and go into that TFL region with the band underneath the toe and really good activations down through the toe. So with these ones, again, 2 sets of 15, 3 sets of 15 on these should be enough to get everything nice and spicy. We'll go through the other side, see how they're feeling. But yeah, these ones are like really common one. It's something we give a lot to our clients in clinic. So it's a pretty common thing that we give out to our clients in clinic. So once we've done that, we can pop the band away. And then the third exercise we want to do to really consolidate it all in a whole kinetic chain to get the feet, the calves, the hips, the back, the core all working is just a single leg toe touch. So I might even just pop the camera down a little for this one. And then we're just going to stand on one leg, and then from there we tap down and we touch that ankle. So this is the goal of where we want to get to, where we can do those single leg toe touches or single leg ankle taps. Sorry. If you're struggling with balance, you can just touch the back toe down. So if we turn side on, you can just tap that big toe down initially to help with a little bit of balance. We're reaching down, we're touching the ankle. And so the really nice thing about this is if we're touching the ankle, it means we have to shift our bum back. We have to load up that posterior chain. We have to load up the hamstrings. We have to load up the feet in order to do all that. And we have to have some level of core activation and hip control. So that's like a really nice way of then going through and going calf raises into glute activation and foot activation into whole body activation. And so then the last stage of the rehab that we said that most people forget, so a lot of people get stuck on the calf raises and they don't go any further and they wonder why their plantar fascia keeps coming back, is the hopping protocol. So like we said, your calf and your Achilles and your plantar fascia are designed to act like springs. So we need to train them to be more like springs. And so that's the reason why generally it's an older population or middle-aged population that start to get Achilles and plantar fascia pain is because they lose their springiness. They're no longer running, they're no longer playing like weekend sport. They just lose that springiness. So a nice simple way of starting to get back into it is through some double leg hops. So we can start through and we'll just do some nice single hops. And then again, once you can get up to 3 sets of 15 of these hops, then you can go into single leg hops. So we're doing 3 sets of 15 on each leg. And when they feel good, then we can go into our single leg hopping protocol. So the single leg hopping protocol gets all the ranges of motion that you'll probably ever need in terms of hopping going together in one go. So we're going to start off with bent knee hops. So we'll do 20 on one knee, on one leg, with the knee bent. Then what we're going to do is 20, one leg, knee straight or stiff knee. Then we're going to do 10 forwards and 10 back, so 20 in total. And sometimes it helps just to hop over a line or a little like cracking the pavement. And then we're going to do 10 side to side or 20 in total. So that's a really nice way of starting to incorporate some hopping back into your training. Personally, that hopping protocol is what I do before I go for a run. So that way my feet, my calf, everything's worked up, and you can tell I've gotten a bit of a like puff on, so it starts to get the cardiovascular system working as well. And they're like a really nice stage progressions of how to go through and treat your plantar fascia. So we're starting off with releasing and doing some isometric work. Then we're doing some strengthening and integration. So calf raises, glute bridge, single leg glute bridges, bend under the toes, and then the heel taps. And then finally, we're starting to retrain those plantar fascia and the intrinsic muscles in the feet, how we want them to work like springs without hopping. So I hope that makes sense. I hope they're easy to follow. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the video below.